to join. All right, welcome everybody. This call is being recorded. My name is Victoria Matias. I am the Community Coordinator for Texas Health and Environment Alliance, or THEA. We are excited to have you join us for this webinar on strengthening your digital media outreach. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. The presentation today will last about 30 minutes, and there will be a Q&A session afterwards. Please be sure to keep your microphones on mute to avoid background noise. You are welcome to leave your questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and we will be monitoring it to do our best to answer all of the questions during the Q&A. And we want to get to know our audience better. So there is a poll that is going to pop up. It seems that for some people, it may be it won't let you answer right away, but just give it a couple tries. We want to know where you're joining us from. So if you could please answer that. And if you're having difficulty answering it, if you could just drop it in the chat, that works too. Well, now without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker, Brenda Edith Franco. Her pronouns are she, they. She is a Houston-based communication strategist, lens-based artist, and community organizer dedicated to advancing environmental justice and community storytelling. As communications director at Air Alliance Houston, Brenda leads multilingual communication strategies to engage and mobilize communities across the region. Brenda received her BFA in photography and digital media from the University of Houston and holds a community organizing certificate from the Harvard Kennedy School of Public Policy, as well as an advanced design for organizing certificate from Social Movement Technologies. Alongside her communications work, she maintains an active artistic practice rooted in photography, memory, and cultural identity. They co-founded Uncle Bob's Photo Sign Fest, a one-day biannual festival dedicated to highlighting independent photo bookmakers and supporting community-centered publishing. Her work has been exhibited in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Mexico City, and featured in independent publications such as La Horchata Sign. When she isn't working, Brenda enjoys visiting art exhibits across Texas and spending time with her family and two pugs, Frida and Diego. So I will pass it on to our wonderful speaker, Brenda. Thank you so much for joining us on this call today.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I appreciate you, and I appreciate Thea for welcoming me and trusting me with holding this space, and everybody that is in attendance and that registered. Thank you so much for the trust as well. Let's get started. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that? Can I get a thumbs up? If so, awesome. So as Victoria mentioned, we're going to be talking about digital media outreach. And as the communications director at Air Alliance Houston, I've been able to really figure out some great just do's and don'ts and sort of things that, I've picked up throughout my career, also just as a marketing person, as a creative, and as a storyteller. What we're going to cover today and what I'm going to try to touch upon is tools, thinking about Canva for graphics and even more, video equipment and how to keep it lo-fi and, very, I guess I should say what you have on hand. We're also going to be talking about media types, posting with intention, making sure that why are you posting and for who, and does it fit the platform that you're posting on? We're also going to be touching upon paid ads and collaborating, some do's and don'ts, the nature of social media kits, and bewaring of the trolls as it comes with, paid ads. And then we're also going to be touching on language justice, posting in multiple languages, making sure that you understand what is your community's demographic and their language needs so that you can best tell your story. And I do want to put a quick disclaimer, and that
Hey,
is that,
Brenda,
yes.
sorry to interrupt you. On the share screen, you have some patches that are like over the screen.
Oh,
I don't
some
know how to
patches.
best describe it. There's
Okay,
like
I'm
these
gonna,
black boxes that are covering some areas at the top right corner and on the left side.
I'm gonna stop sharing and then I'm just gonna restart. See if I, okay. I'm gonna, did it go away?
They did not. It's weird because those didn't come on when we did the test.
Okay. See.
Sorry, everybody. You know this is live.
Appreciate y'all's for your patience. Well, I'm gonna, let's see. Okay. I'm gonna
Oh,
restart one
it
more
went out.
time.
Yeah.
It went
When you
away?
took
Yeah.
it went away like as soon as you took it off.
Okay. I think I just changed out my settings here real quick. All right. Is it still there? Or are we
No,
back?
we are good.
Okay, perfect. All righty, y'all. Thank you for the patience. As I was saying, a disclaimer for this digital media outreach workshop is that what digital media is and isn't, and what it should not be is your first touch point in organizing. Digital media, any outreach that we do on our socials and beyond is a supportive communication channel, and it should not be the main organizing tool. We should use it as reinforcement and to reinforce trust that folks are creating in real world actions and not just putting out digital noise. The real work comes first, and that is door knocking, community tabling, block walking, your community meetings, local canvassing, phone and text banking. Digital media is supportive and should expand on this work, not replace it. And so, why does posting matter? Well, posting equals proof. It shows that the action that you are talking about with your communities is real, relevant, and reachable. It also helps build legitimacy. I saw it online and in person. Folks tend to, after you speak with them, if they have real interest in what you're talking about, they're going to look you up. And so if they're able to connect these dots, it helps build that trust and legitimacy. Also, posting in real time, matching your online posting to the timeline of the community outreach. So, for example, if you are at a tabling event that you've been promoting and you decide to post photos from the same day of the tabling event, or even, showing that you're flyering a few days before you block walk, posting in real time these actions tells people that whatever it is that you're communicating, organizing around is both real and happening. And also, as I mentioned before, research trails. People Google you after a conversation and you want to give them somewhere to land. Keeping your socials updated with flyers, petitions, videos, and faces from the field. All of these things create visibility, validation, and momentum for your organizing. And how do we do that? Well, so these are some of the basic tools that I use, and I think, I definitely vouch for them. I am not sponsored by Canva, but I do use the tool a lot because I do believe that it is a very easy to use. There are free versions, and it's a pretty robust version. And the nonprofit rates that are available, depending on what your organization budget looks like, I definitely encourage you to explore that. Canva is great for creating graphics, flyers, and carousels. You're able to use preloaded templates that the software already has that are ready to plug and play, which means that you are able to change the colors to your org's branding. You can even upload your organization's fonts, your logos, so that it's easy to plug and play with the templates that they already have preloaded. Another tool is your phone. Your phone is, most of us have this little computer in our pockets, and it's able to record videos, to capture photos, and do quick edits on the go. Or, once you're done editing, you can go back home and, use something like CapCut or Instagram edits or even TikTok. A lot of these platforms already have their own editing software in there that are pretty easy to use. And a real hot tip is you don't need expensive camera equipment to do this. You don't need, the $3,000 Canon or the DJI. What what I suggest is focusing on the video content creation. I would say really what is it that you're trying to say versus how it's gonna look. And I think once you get more into creating this kind of content, it may be worth considering, getting some nicer equipment. Number three, lighting. Natural light, ring lights, all of these things create a clear subject and a polished final production. And again, it builds that trust with your audience because they can clearly see whoever it is that they're speaking, whoever it is that's speaking to them. And then last but not least, it's audio. And one of the things that really, as a viewer, as someone that consumes media on on these social platforms, is when I'm watching a video and the person's so far away and I can't really hear anything that they're saying. It tunes me out. And so a real quick way to bypass this and neutralize this is to, they sell little lavalier mics. They sell them at Five Below, Amazon, if you're okay with that. And then you can plug them into your phone, or there are even some Bluetooth ones that allows you to move around a little bit easier um, without having to really um, do away with your audio. And a hot tip is make sure that the mic's adapter matches your phone. Now, all of these phones have different charging cables, so making sure that, if you have a USB-C, that the adapter works for your phone. And a little sidebar here is organizing your file systems. So as you start creating content and as you start shooting and taking photos and recording things, I highly encourage you to start having some sort of organization matrix or way of organizing your content, because this is going to really allow your for your organization to be able to find things easily. Or if you are the person that is handling the content creation, for you to be able to say, okay, well, this was, in 2025, I shot this in May, and this was the name. Just giving things folders and names really helps with the workflow and making that easy for you. And also handing it off to your team. Moving on. Another thing I want to touch on is your types of media and when to use them. And so carousels are those media pieces that are graphics and that you are swiping. And they're sort of really great for telling a story, for giving a timeline, and breaking down complex issues. They're easy to repost and also to translate, because once you have the English version, you're able to take that copy and translate it if that is a resource you have available. Another great type of media is videos. Video right now is king. I highly encourage you, if you have not already started to create videos for your campaigns and for your community efforts. I highly recommend it. Videos are great for testimonials, for calls to actions, to recap events. Even if it's a 30-second clip, that goes a long way because, again, you're letting people know that you are doing this work. You are on the ground and you're able to tell the story of your organization in that way. Animations as GIFs, those are really great for catching attention, but I would also use them sparingly. Make sure that they deliver substance and there's a reason for why they are on your content, um, uh, to tell a story or to make a point. You don't want to use it just because it's flashy. And last but not least, as I was mentioning before, it does not all need to live digitally. Printable flyers are still very much needed. And again, Canva has a really great tool where you can take a carousel, which is usually in a square format or in a 4x5 format, and resize it for a printable 8.5 by 10 sheet. You resize it for even a video, a vertical video at 1080, 1920. It's a very easy tool to use that allows you to use one graphic for many things. And printable flyers are still very much needed. And I would highly suggest to always include date, time, location, a contact info. And if all of these things can live somewhere, a QR code that links it to whatever registration or website you have for the event or action. Next thing I do want to make sure to plug is that size matters. Where is your media going to live? Different platforms have their own specific size formats. And one of the biggest things that puts me off, at least, is when I see a flyer posted and the top and the bottom is chopped off. And I immediately tune out because to me, it tells me that if you're not willing to make sure that this is legible, why should I be willing to stick around and figure out what it says? And a part of this is, again, Canva makes it really easy. They have preloaded sizes for specifically for different formats. Some really universal ones, your Instagram and Facebook, the square or portrait 4x5 format. That's great. It's just a little shorter than an 8.5 by 10, but it makes a big difference. And then again, for video, if you're doing that reel, that story vertical size video, the 1080 by 1920, that is, you're going to see that all over on your, any video format that we have right now, even on YouTube. X, Threads, and Blue Sky, these spaces still square format or your long horizontal format video works really well there as well. And then obviously TikTok, again, that vertical format, that 1080 by 1920. And also something I learned recently is that you can also share still images on TikTok. So you can double up and, those graphics that you're creating for your other platforms can also be used on TikTok. So, and as I mentioned before, hot tip, Canva resizes by platform, and you can easily copy your template so you can have multiple sizes of the same graphics. You want to make sure that you're getting the bang out of your buck whenever you're creating this content. And what is in your content? What should live in these pieces of content that you're putting out? You want to make sure that you show the problem right away, that you are letting your audience know that there is something happening that needs their attention. You provide a solution, and in what way does that solution culminate into a call to action? You hook them. You want to, I'm going to test these real quick and see if they work. Y'all let me know. Are y'all seeing an Instagram video?
Yes, it's
Maybe.
loading. It's on the
Okay.
Instagram page. Now it's loaded.
Is a national movement that started a few years ago to help people better understand and put themselves in the shoes of people who do not.
Well, that's just one example. And I've sent this to Victoria, the presentation. So if y'all want to go back and look at these examples, I definitely encourage you to do that. You can start off with a question, which is what that video was. You can hook people with an aha moment. Let's see if this loads.
I came down with cancer in 2016. Could this be the reason why I came down with cancer? The fumes in the air?
You can use an info list, or also known as a listicle. I know I really enjoy just having some really sweet, tight information shown to me in a succinct way. So this is another example of what that could look like. This is, that carousel format that I was speaking about earlier. And so if you really have no clue how else to get your point across, just make it into a meme. I know it sounds silly, and especially with a lot of the work that we do, it's very heavy, and it's very difficult to make, to poke fun. But sometimes that's the way that people respond, and maybe that's how, you might get a different audience that you wouldn't normally get. And also I am a true believer that if you know how to speak about something really well, then you can usually you can talk about it in the most simplest way. And what is more simple than a meme? And all in all, don't plagiarize, and beware of copyright music, especially with video use. That is something that, especially if you're on YouTube or even Instagram, you got to be careful about. But aside from that, making sure that the kind of content that you're making speaks to your audience and that you're able to hook them and get them in. And now let's talk about language justice. So one of the things, coming into this environmental justice space was that was really amazing to me is the intentionality around reaching our intended audience. And that looks like knowing your audience. And that looks like, figuring out what languages are spoken in your organizing base. And do your graphics, does your content reflect that? Tools for access. Are you using alt text? Most of these platforms have alternative text options. And these are options that are, really great for screen readers, folks that, are hard of seeing, hard of sight. Captioning your videos. A lot of, again, the tools that are preloaded on TikTok, Instagram, and even CapCut, they have auto captioning tools. So you're able to automate the captioning so that it's easier for folks that are hard of hearing. And then, I would say, what kind of approach do you want to post in? One option is that you can, let's say, for example, if you have one English graphic and the next same post, within the same post, you just swipe and it's the Spanish graphic, that's a really great way. And then, loading up the caption with the multiple languages. Another option is one graphic with a split layout where the English and Spanish both live on the one graphic that you're posting, and again using the caption to disseminate the details. My favorite option is duplicating posts for each language. So English gets its own post and dedicated caption. Spanish gets its own post and dedicated caption. And I included Vietnamese here because I'm in Houston. And I'm not sure if y'all know this, but Houston has about 50 spoken languages here, but the top 3 languages spoken throughout our city are English, second Spanish, and third Vietnamese. So, depending on the area that we're organizing in, we'll probably be creating our content in one or at least 2 of these languages. So those are some things to consider, and whatever works for you, but considering that multiple languages do exist and that there are some really accessible ways to create that content. Now let's get into paid ads and collaborating. Boosting with intention. One of the do's is boost post with clear calls to actions, whether it's an RSVP, sign our petition, attend our meeting, geo-targeting based on your outreach zones. So for example, again, I live in Houston. For those of you that don't know, Houston is a large city. And so when we're organizing specifically around our affected communities, more than likely it's going to be the east side of town. So making sure that when we're setting up our ads, that we have specific zip codes so that the folks that need to get this information are actually getting the information. But then on the organizing side, you don't want to be dumping money into a community who, has nothing really to do with what it is that your campaign is about. So making sure that you're targeting really helps. And last but not least, leverage the content that is organically successful. One of the things that I really encourage you to do is to go back and maybe do a social media audit and see which posts were the most successful, and even looking at which ones weren't, But once you have that idea, that tells you what your audience values already. And if you think that the content that has been doing really well is evergreen, that, can live beyond the time that it was posted, I definitely encourage you to, boost it, put some paid ad money behind it, and see how much more reach you can get. And some don'ts when it comes to paid ads is don't boost every single post. We're already inundated with so much. You want to make sure that you're being strategic. And I go back to looking at your content that's already organically successful on its own. Don't rely solely on boosting. Organic reach and direct contact still works the best. And again, do not skip audience targeting, because depending on the type of campaign and content, it's not a one size fits all. And really quickly, something that I have been really striving to do more of, especially in this coming year, is collaborating with partners. Collaborating with the organizations that are adjacent to you, working with you, and creating collaborative posts so that you're able to cross-pollinate with each other's followers. And a really great way to do that is by creating and sharing social media kits with your partner organization so that the messaging is consistent and on the same page. If you click here, I've included a sample social media kit. I believe it's loading. And in here, you'll see a Google Drive folder. You'll see a Word document. And in that Word document, I've included, who to tag by platform, the caption in English and in Spanish, included the alt text so that it could be easily plugged in. All of these things help those organizations that you're collaborating with stay on the same page and stay on message, and then ultimately help each other to grow your audience. And real quick, this is a posting timeline. Here at Air Alliance, we work a lot around permit opposition against the TCEQ or our environmental regulator here. And usually once we have a permit meeting scheduled, we have about a month to mobilize our communities. So usually about week 3 from the date, we'll create our first outreach. We'll start flyering, whether it be in person or online. And the call to action is join us. Join us and demand for clean air. We would also at this point create a Facebook event page along with the initial post, which can also be boosted with paid ads. And again, making sure that it's targeted to that community. Week 2, so 2 weeks out from the event, tabling, block walking, and taking photos of that. You know, if you have the capacity to create a video promotion that essentially has a person speaking about the event and event details, that's awesome. And then another reminder post that basically reposting that first post that you created and that you posted in week 3. And then week 1, we get to the day of the permit hearing, live updates, whether that would be in the form of tweets. I know that that's something we did early on, whether that be in the form of Instagram stories or Facebook stories, and making sure that after the event happens to tell your audience, thank you. And if there are any next steps, letting them know what that is. Even after the week is, the event is done, you can take whatever videos or photos and post that as a recap as well. And all of this is integrated in the on-the-ground content. You want to take the photos at the canvassing and at the event, obviously with permission. And if some folks are very very clear that they don't want to be photographed, I highly encourage you to just listen to them and maybe not include them in whatever photos or videos are taken. And then posting with captions that are, again, as I was saying earlier, live to what it is that you're doing. So we're hitting the streets to stop this permit. Join us this Thursday. Making sure that all of these things are speaking to the event as it is happening or about to happen. And that's really it, y'all. That's all I have to share. I think I'm right at 30 minutes. And if you all have any takeaways, any comments, want something, have questions about something that hasn't been covered, please ask away.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Very valuable presentation. I personally learned a lot. And there were some questions in the chat that were dropped throughout the presentation. So I'm gonna be reading them here, and if y'all can continue to be dropping your questions in the comments, in the chat. We'll also get to some hands if anybody prefers to ask your question. Feel free to just raise your hand and we'll get to you. So I have a question from Steve asking, can you say more about what carousels are?
Yeah, carousels. So I think I showed an example. Let me see if I can find it. So this is a carousel. Essentially, it is a post with multiple graphics in one. I think right now Instagram has it where you can post up to 20, which is a lot, but sometimes you need 20 graphics. And here I'm using the online desktop version, so obviously I'm having to click through. But when you're on your phone, you're usually swiping, right? And that's essentially what a carousel post is a post with multiple graphics in one. Does that clear up your question?
Thank you, Brenda. Yes,
Awesome.
We see a thumbs up from Steve. And a question from Adam says, when do you recommend to boost versus targeted ads?
Boosting versus targeted ads. Well, so one of the strategies that I use here is, especially when it comes to content that's evergreen, and evergreen essentially means that there's no specific date tied to the video or to the piece of content, whether it's a graphic or, something else, but that it's just a general piece of content that speaks to the organization and that can be used for either getting people to our website or getting more followers, whatever the goal is. But this content can just live without an event attached to it or a call to action attached to it. That I would boost without any geo-targeting, really. And geo-targeting to any specific community. I would still target it really to, the Houston area, because that's where it applies here. I even sometimes target beyond Houston and do all of Texas, because our work is, our work does sometimes need regional attention, especially with, the ways our laws are, done here. But when it comes to geo-targeting, I highly suggest doing that when you are working with a specific community. Now, again, I'm in Houston, and so this city is really big, and so our communities are, quite far in between from each other. So, if I were to just generally boost the paid ad to all of the city, and it only has to do with something that's happening in Fifth Ward, for example, here, if you don't live in Fifth Ward, it's not going to make sense. And also you'd be wasting a lot of budget on putting this in front of people that don't need it to be seen, don't need to see it. So unless you have like a very specific community, that's exactly when I would geo-target. Yeah. And if it's something that you don't mind, whoever, if anything, it's even better if everybody were to see it, then just boost it without any sort of geo-targeting. Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. Our next question comes from Liliana. What if you use your personal IG and want to collaborate?
Ooh. So collaborate like with an org, or collaborate with another person's personal account?
An org.
An org. So I would first make sure that, one, you're comfortable with that, because it's going to be your personal account, and I'm very much, I like to keep like my work account and my personal accounts separate. Also, we're living in such really weird times. Doxing is a thing. If you don't know what doxing is, it's essentially when folks that aren't trying to do good will go out of their way to find people that are doing the kind of work that we're doing, and will use whatever information you have out there to basically just badmouth you on the internet and beyond, if they can. So I would just be careful if it is your personal account. I would say if you are comfortable with, just knowing all of those things going in, and knowing that the org is also comfortable with collaborating, whether it be because you have a captive audience, you might even, I don't know, you're an influencer in your community, and you're known for talking about these topics. I think that that's actually it could be a really cool way for you to, help out an organization. So just making sure that you're comfortable with, what could come of it, and making sure that I also, obviously, the organization is comfortable with with collaborating with your personal account. And if it's mutual, I say why not? Yeah.
Thank you, Brenda. Another question said, how hard is it for a small organization to hire someone to do this for them part-time? What is the average outlay for someone hiring part-time? And how does one keep control of content and insider information when staff is part-time?
That's awesome. That's an awesome question. So I think I'm gonna answer the first part and then the second part. The second part and then the first part, sorry. So one way that I would highly suggest to keep control and make sure that there's some sort of approval process is that there's content scheduling tools available. There's different tools have different prices, and depending on your budget and what you're looking for. The one we use here is called Sprout. There's another one that a good friend of mine is using at her job. It's called Metrical. There's also another one that I used to use. I can't think of the name, but essentially, if you were to Google content scheduling tool, you will find that there's different tools for that. And they tend to allow for approval processes to be done. So let's say if you have someone that you are contracting or is part-time, as you're talking about, and they have access to this content calendar. Maybe, one of their tasks is to load up the content for the week. And before it posts, you'll be able to go in and approve the content before it posts, maybe even edit the caption. At that point, if you're like, oh, this caption needs a little bit more information, you can do that. Or if, maybe the graphic has a typo in it, that's a good way for you to have that control part without just completely letting go of the organization's integrity. And I guess to the first part, when it comes to hiring folks in this sort of field, my background is in art, photography, and I would highly encourage you to look beyond, just the community that tends to be organizing. I think organizers are great. However, there are certain skill sets that come from, doing other disciplines. So I would encourage you, if you're looking for part-time, even students in college that are maybe in their second to last year of graduating. That's how I got started, to be honest. I started working at a nonprofit the year before I graduated, and it was part-time. I learned a lot, and I guess they liked my work enough to put me on full-time. So that could be one way to also get, someone to do this kind of work at a part-time level. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Super helpful. Another question says, what are the copyright issues from taking clips from TV news?
Yes, so definitely have to be super careful with that. I tend to, I will say that whenever I do take clips from YouTube or and it's especially if it's like a clip that was made by a news station, you want to just make sure that they are given, what's the word? That you're giving them credit. Yeah, that you want to make sure that you're giving them credit. If you're able to tag them, that would be good too. If they reach out to you and say, hey, we don't appreciate you using our content, just delete it. Just take it down. Don't make it a big deal. Take it down. I would say that tends to not be as big of a deal as much as, using photos or videos made by residents or community members that were posted like on their own socials. I think that may be more of an issue. And if you know that someone posted this photo that they took it and you feel like that's the exact image that I need, I would encourage you to first ask them, hey, is it okay if I use this photo? We're an organization and we just want to amplify this this issue. We'll give you credit for for taking the photo or video, whatever the content is. And again, if they say no, just take the no and keep it pushing. But I will say that the best kind of content is your own original content, because that just completely takes away any of the issues with copyright.
Thank you, Brenda. And a question from Jen says, what are the limitations for nonprofits to use licensed music in reels and stories?
Yes. So I do on our account have a setup to where we can use licensed music. And it's essentially if your account is set up as a business account, Instagram automatically doesn't allow you to use any of the licensed music. But if you switch your account type to creator account, which gives you more, it's actually more robust than the business account because you get better analytics, you get access to the licensed music. And because it's Instagram, it'll just automatically, filter out, whatever music you're not able to use depending on your location. So that's one way to get away from that. Now, if you definitely just want to make sure that you're using, copyright-free music, there is a music library on YouTube where you can download already, copyright-free music. And let me see if I can find that and I'll send that over to you, Victoria, and maybe she can share that with y'all as well when she sends the presentation. But that's something that I use a lot, especially, just like background music, things of that nature. So that's a really cool and free tool that you can use. And it's on YouTube, so yeah.
Awesome. That's a great tip. Yeah, I made a note of it so that we can send it out with the presentation and recording.
Okay.
Another
Yay.
question says, would you elaborate on the collaboration process? How does this work in practice?
Yes. So usually the times that our organization has collaborated with around an event with partners or a different campaign, it's usually something where our partner organizations are working together towards a call to action, whether it be make comments to the EPA, for example, or join us at this event. Usually, if there is a lead organization, that's usually who I would punt to try to create the social media kit. But if you're working in coalition and that just somebody needs to do it, just making sure that you're all clear on what the message is and what the call to action is. And here, I'm gonna share this. So this was a social media kit that I used for a candidate forum. And all of these orgs were involved in organizing, putting together in some form, in some way, shape, or form, they were involved. And I went ahead and created the caption, made sure that their tags were included, All of this was also pre-approved before sending out. So that is one thing, to make sure, and that takes communicating with your organizations and making sure that whoever is the lead on the campaign, that, just things are being approved and updated as needed. I would say when creating a social media kit, not to have too many cooks in the kitchen. So whoever is the person working on it, that they're the person that is holding it. And the main document is linked to, anything that has to do with this event or campaign, it lives in this document. So the registration link for the event, the Facebook event page is also on there. And then you'll see here that the different graphics are on there in English and Spanish, for printing, for sending an email. So whatever format it is that the person will need or the organization will need to, share this with their network, it's already there. And really what this does, it just makes it really easy for all of these organizations to just plug and play. So just plug in the caption, load up the graphic, and copy and paste everything. And that is going to give you the reach, because now, all of these orgs are speaking to each other in this way. Is there something else do you want me to expand on when it comes to that?
This question came from Kelsey. Kelsey, does that answer your question?
Yes, I believe you've answered most of my question.
Okay, cool.
I
Beautiful.
mean, when collaborating, just to reiterate, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, usually there's a lead on a project or campaign, and communication matters. So there will be pre-approved messaging that goes out to everybody within a coalition or involved in a campaign. Do I understand?
Yeah. And I will say, when it comes to, because I know that also Instagram has a collaborative tag tool now, and you can only collaborate with up to 5 profiles. And essentially what that means is that those profiles that you've tagged to collaborate, that post that you've posted natively to your profile will also show up on those profiles you collaborated with. Now, again, you only get up to 5. So if you're working with, something like this, where you're working with multiple organizations, what I would say is, if it's a coalition, making sure that you prioritize those in the coalition. And if there's 10 in a coalition, I would say prioritizing those who are most I guess included, or have the most have pulled the most weight towards the campaign, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kelsey and Brenda. We have time for, I think, maybe 2 more questions. We have about 3 more questions on the queue, so we'll try to get to them. But if we don't, we'll do our best to reply via email. So we have a question for Vernon, and it says, what are your recommendations regarding handling trolls in the comments? Many of our local trolls are coal industry supporters. If too nasty, I often remove the comments, but sometimes leave them as examples of the gross ignorance and hate that they show.
So I love your approach, first of all. I just want to say yes. I usually, my rule of thumb with trolls is don't engage. Unless, there is a talking point within, that your org has, like, this is this is something we've sanctioned. You can use, this is the talking point that you feel is a good rebuttal to whatever it is that they're talking about. I'll give you an example. Last year, our organization had a EPA grant rescinded as soon as the new administration came on. And when we decided to post about some of the legal actions that we decided to take, the trolls came for us pretty hard. And one of the things that kept coming up in the comments was, well, you're a nonprofit, you should be able to just, get your own money. And one of the things that we kept thinking is, well, this is, this was an application process. We went through, hoops and lines of fire to get to the point where we were accepted. It's not as if we're just, asking for any kind of money. This is specific money for our kind of organization to use. And so, obviously we tailored that kind of talking point a little better for responding. However, there were at some point where the trolls got really nasty. Anytime I think someone's life is threatened, block, delete, report is my MO. We don't encourage that. I don't need to see that. I think it's there to your point that sometimes just leaving a comment there so that folks can see, the kind of just the kinds of things that our work brings up for people. I think that's sometimes important too. But I think that when necessary, and if it helps clear up, maybe not just for the person commenting, but for the onlookers, because people are reading comments. Like, let's be honest, like that's my nighttime routine, is going online and reading the comment section. So if you feel like what you have to say is gonna help clear up some of the trolls comments, then definitely do that. But if not, it's the delete, it's the block, and it's the report for me. That's my go-to. And real quick, I will say this: the trolls, at the end of the day, the trolls are actually helping you more because they're engaging with your posts, and not only are they engaging, they're commenting. So regardless if it's negative or positive, Facebook doesn't care. All Facebook sees is this post is getting a lot of engagement. And so really, they're only helping you and your org and your work get the word out faster to more people, even if it's vitriol that's coming out of them. So keep that in mind too.
Like they say, there's no bad publicity.
Exactly.
Which there is, but the metrics still work.
Either way, it's eyes on you, baby. It's eyes on you.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay, y'all. So we are at 12:59. We have maybe time for one question. It says, can you still fundraise as a creator account versus a business account?
Yeah, you can. I've been able to fundraise with the creator account. Yes. I think as long as your account is also under a nonprofit status and you're able to confirm all of that, whether it be, via Facebook or Instagram, you're able to do that. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. We did have a couple of questions left over in the chat. So we'll try to get to those via email. I do have your names over here. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We really appreciate this content. Comments are coming in through the chat saying how valuable this information has been, and I concur. I think it has been extremely helpful. So thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you everybody for
Thank
joining us
y'all.
today.
Thank y'all so much.
Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Bye.